It is time, once again, to mark the passing of another year with a selection of Halloween specials I have collected, scoured from the shadowy corners of the internet and your childhood. Come, let us once again look at 13 more curiously weird Halloween specials. Also, Herschel will not be appearing in this video as he is a member of SAG. Who knew?
Ah, you're conscious. Good. I'm hosting the Mary Shelley's Frankenhole Mini Halloween Marathon tonight.
Frankenhole Halloween Mini Marathon. In 2010, Adult Swim premiered a show about Victor von Frankenstein and his misadventures through... Okay, well that's actually not quite right. To be perfectly honest, the show was mostly about people just bothering him. It was kind of like a proto-Rick and Morty. Dan Harmon actually shows up at one point.
Well, if it isn't Victor Frankenstein. Remember Young Frankenstein? Good movie. Laugh right.
The premise is that the now immortal doctor alleviates his boredom by taking on odd jobs from people from various points in history.
Hop up! Actually...
Aside from really good art direction, wonderfully detailed miniatures, and a unique kind of paper puppet design, I don't think about this show too often. I mean, I really like the theme song.
Space and time, stranger than the soul is the world. We're going down the Frankenhole.
But looking back at it now, I can really think of it as kind of a transition point for Adult Swim. The first season of the show being edgelord South Parky Family Guy shtick, and the second season being a little bit more philosophical, emotional, and exploring the actual science fiction plot lines and themes.
Whoa! Szechuan style! Spicy hot!
Just a little bit, though. After a bit of a hiatus, there was a Halloween marathon to basically remind people that this series existed, and to get them a little hyped for season 2. So in reality, this special is really a series of bumpers that aired between the episodes. Which means the amount of new footage is actually around 5 minutes. Actually about as half as long as an actual Adult Swim show. Or as long as it used to be. But still, it's got some interesting gags, and you can really tell they put effort into the animation.
How many monsters does it take to change a light bulb?
I give how many?
Get it?
Yeah, knee slapper.
Plus, it does remind me of a phenomenon that I've always wanted to talk about. And that's how certain shows will become a kind of holiday ambassador for a channel. This is usually only for Halloween, since, everyone likes to take a crack at a Christmas episode. But if your channel happens to have a show that features some element of the supernatural or monsters, then for 1 month that show will become the flagship of the channel. Like how Real Monsters became synonymous with Nick or Treat since its premiere. How Billy and Mandy or Courage were constantly running on Cartoon Network during October. I seem to remember the WB going really hard one year when they were airing Monster Allergies. Remember Monster Allergies?
No.
No.
Yes. I mean, no.
And of course there's The Big Twist.
I'm not Victor Frankenstein at all. This is just my Halloween costume.
Haha! It's me, Oral, dressed as my favorite Adult Swim character ever!
Yeah, people remembered this mainly because they like to remember Moral Oral so much more. But also they found it weird that Oral would be watching an Adult Swim show in the first place.
I just love your show. It always makes me feel right at home.
Stinking dead-end job.
Oh, and by the way, a special thanks to the people that actually recorded and uploaded these segments. Since, the only thing deader than physical media is streaming services.
Happy Halloween, everybody!
I hear they throw rotten eggs everywhere.
Yummy.
Why waste a perfectly rotten egg? Humans, go figure.
The Real Monsters pilot. the classic Class B Cupo series about the three adolescent monsters and their misadventures navigating boarding school and the human society under the stern eye of the Grumble. Premiered during Nick or Treat in 1994, which apparently many considered the high mark of its nearly 2-decade run. And I tend to agree. I personally tuned in on my grandma's old wooden paneled CRT to see the premiere, and I was delighted to see the new characters behind the doors during the game segments.
You want prizes? You are absolutely positively at the wrong house.
Where do you want to go next?
And the first episode of the series actually takes place on Halloween, which is already cool.
A scratch and sniff costume. Whoa, that's nasty. Hey, Transformer! Where'd you get your costume?
Look at those ears. What do you do in the rain?
I can count on my hand the number of shows that canonically start with a Halloween episode. Canonically, so, not counting anthology shows. Yeah, go ahead, try to think of some. I can only think of this one. And that's good enough to actually be on this list, but there's one more thing. Now, incidentally, Ickis, the nervous runt of the group, accidentally inspires the nervous runt of the neighborhood to dress like him for Halloween.
Oh, excellent. Now I've got an attack rabbit.
I'm a monster.
Hey, don't laugh. Nikki actually saw one of these in the garbage. Didn't you, Nikki?
And then, when they get switched at a disrupted Halloween party, they have to find a way to survive in each other's shoes.
Don't eat me, don't eat me. Oh, we don't eat humans. Who knows where they've been?
It's a tired and true premise, and by the end they learn stuff about themselves and their world gets a little bigger. No, what's weird is that we actually never see this kid again, which really threw me for a loop. Like, there are so many shows at the time that set me up for, the human ally of the group. Your April O'Neils, your Elisa Mazas, and to a lesser extent your Charlies and your Benzes. So I was totally ready for this kid to become a recurring character, which he didn't. Which is maybe for the best, since the monsters learning about the human world from their own perspective without having someone hold their hands was way more interesting and original. And I guess what's cool about this is that it can always be the Halloween special. It is the beginning of the series, of course, but the continuity of the show is such that any episode can be aired in any order. They really don't add any new characters, and the established ones don't really go through any major developments that, doesn't reset by the end of an episode. You know how, Rugrats clearly has, different periods depending on what the last movie was? Well, you don't get that here. So in a weird way, Our Real Monsters has its own little self-contained time loop that starts and ends on Halloween. Freaky.
My very own eyes. Have a ball.
What's going on in here?
Some kind of pumpkin botulism.
Alvin and the Chipmunks, Trick or Treason. After the conclusion of the 1980s-90s series, and the brief Go to the Movies season, Alvin and the Chipmunks had a few animated specials to cap off this series run, before they eventually moved to Universal, where the true horrors were yet to come. And on its surface, it looks like this is just a normal Halloween special. It's a spooky autumn night, and Theodore and Simon are getting ready for holiday festivities. And Alvin is, well, being himself. How did he even get in that pumpkin? Turns out Alvin is trying to come up with a killer Halloween prank to impress the Monster Club.
Being driven in the Monster Mobile. Girls swooning all over me and wearing the coolest jacket. Being a member of the Monster Club.
Yes, this is exactly the life of horror nerds. Why did Alvin think a bunch of numbnuts in his age group would have access to a car and groupies? And why would he care? The Chipmunks have had sold-out concert tours. Alvin, you know Will Smith.
Alvin, Simon, and Theodore all for one. It's the 90s and they're still getting the job done.
Anyway, this is the group of kids who say they are monster enthusiasts, but don't actually spend a lot of time talking about horror movies, or scary comics, or the industry at all. They pretty much just want to find someone to harass and use Halloween night as an excuse to do it.
They're a group of power-crazed bullies that entice the simple-minded with cheap thrills and illusions of grandeur.
It's weird. Almost like you could replace horror with anything, like video games or comics, or an unusual appreciation for art from the European Renaissance. And this crew would be just as hostile.
Tonight's Halloween. Someone has to get monster mashed.
Again, pretty weird, huh? So anyway, the Ethics and Journalism Club have their eyes set on Michael, a new kid in town who was born with a cranial abnormality. I mean, I guess that's their term for it. Other than that, Michael seems like a perfectly normal kid. He's caring and has an interest in medicine and engineering. He takes care of Theodore when he has a nasty fall outside his home. Also, Michael seems just as emotionally mature. I like this part where he tells Theodore to keep this a secret.
But don't, Theodore, because once they know we're friends, you'll be treated as badly as I am.
At first I was wondering why, but I like to interpret this as him being savvy enough to take as much pressure off of Theodore as possible. He knows the other kids are making fun of him and doesn't want that to translate to Theodore, or have to have Theodore defend him. Michael just wants to have someone to hang out with. Naturally, the two brothers come at an impasse when, okay, that's not a prank. That's a fucking hate crime. So at first it seems like Alvin has gone along with the Monsters Club's plan. And you know what? It's actually pretty cathartic to see Simon and Theo, for once, just really lay into him.
You low-life, spineless, worm doo-doo, gutter jockey.
But it turns out that Alvin pulled a Shyamalan by putting a mask on the leader's head. So he was the one that was assaulted and burned alive by his followers. Good stuff. Then the neighborhood gets a proper introduction to Michael. And turns out there's a bunch of unique kids in the neighborhood.
Oh, Michael, can I say a room some time ago? Theodore's so really neat.
Sure.
Which should have been evident because there are talking chipmunks there. Little weird having a PSA Halloween special, but at least it ended up better than the last one that the chipmunks were in.
Marijuana.
Where'd you score all that TP?
Men in Black, the animated series. The Jack-o'-lantern Syndrome. It's Halloween in New York, and things are getting kind of hectic for the MIB, because it turns out aliens get just as loopy during a full moon as humans.
Hello, it bit me. On Halloween night, under a full moon.
Don't know why you called me, Frank. Supernatural's outside MIB jurisdiction.
Who you gonna call?
It's funny because this very distinctive studio was working on both properties at the same time. Also, the original MIB explicitly dealt with the supernatural. In the comics, they were more of an SCP organization, dealing with monsters and demons. I don't know if that got retconned, or if during the movie development they were just like, let's just focus on aliens. Along with all the crank reports, there's a pumpkin-headed monster alien kidnapping kids that just so happens to resemble a popular movie monster.
Jack-o'-lantern kidnapped me.
You run along home now, son, and be sure you tell everyone exactly what happened.
They'll never believe me.
Darn.
The MIB headquarters is being haunted by what seems to be an actual poltergeist. And the most important of all, Agent J has to take the worms trick-or-treating.
What'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? What'd you get? Candy.
That's no treat.
We've been gypped. We are coming.
Why do they need escorts to go trick-or-treating? Aren't they grown-ass aliens? They drink coffee all the time. Actually, come to think about it, do they just live in the MIB headquarters? Are they like wards of the state? The space state?
I'm an intergalactic law enforcement agent, not an alien babysitter, know what I'm saying? Yo?
This episode is great because it feels like they had 3 ideas for a Halloween episode and just used them all. Jay having to deal with the worms, and an evil alien using Halloween as a cover to steal kids. Because people just haven't been obsessed with stranger danger for the last 20 years. Look at this goofy ass. He doesn't have a teleporter, he doesn't have a cloaking device. He just grabs a kid and walks all the way to the outskirts of town to his spaceship, and then has to walk all the way back. Like, by the time the night is over, he's gonna get like maybe 3 kids tops. I'm not rooting for him, I'm just saying he could clearly be more efficient. Like, this is the MIB equivalent of rubbing lemon juice on your face so you can rob a bank. Then you have The Haunting, which is just pissing off Zed to no end.
We can't attribute this gravitational anomaly to Jack-o'-lantern.
Thank you!
These are definitely symptoms of a haunting.
By the way, I love the duality at display here. If you live in a world where aliens are real, why not just assume ghosts might be real too? But it turns out that Zed's skepticism is right. It's just another alien. But a rare one that lives outside of our realm of comprehension.
Well, if it wants our help getting home, it better return Bob and stop monkeying with our gravity and electricity.
Like I said, I like how this is just throwing everything at the wall. This episode has spooky spirit coming out of every orifice. Also, turns out that aliens like dressing up as other aliens for Halloween, which is kind of like weird, right? But maybe that doesn't have the same connotations it would if humans did it.
Human thought is so primitive, it's looked upon as an infectious disease in some of the better galaxies. That kind of makes you proud, doesn't it?
You want a story?
Yeah.
And you like the scary stuff, right? How about if we make it a scary story?
Dinosaurs. Little Boy Boo. So if you're trying to figure out where the tradition of trick-or-treating came from, you'll get a short answer and a long answer. Like, the consensus is that this is an Americanized version of a Scottish and Irish tradition. But then you get into the grime of it and find out about All Saints' Day, and the tradition of guising, and soul cakes, and all the other precursor traditions that may or may not have influenced this holiday. And then all the other traditions in other places in the world that sound weirdly familiar to Halloween, but can't really be connected to it. Turns out humans just really like dressing up, making treats, and sharing a morbid fixation about spooky stuff. But what about dinosaurs? Like, say you had this society of dinosaurs that managed to hop straight to late-stage capitalism and didn't really have Halloween. What would happen then? Well, naturally, it would all start with you getting back at your bratty little brother by scaring him with a story about turning into a lycanthrope. Wait, Lincoln means wolf. What would a human be? Homothrope? Sapanthrope? I like how dinosaurs would oftentimes try to work some message that mirrors a social issues that we, real-life humans, are dealing with today. Destructive capitalism, toxic sexism, the delicate balance of our environment, or even our own hubris in the face of eternity. But this episode is just kind of like, hey, don't lie. Tricking people isn't fun. Even though it's really, really fun.
Hey, I was only making it up. I just wanted to show you that it isn't funny being scared. Now come on down.
So as a last resort to get baby Sinclair to cooperate with him, Robbie promises to get him some candy. But he doesn't really have any on hand. So...
Hi, sir. I was wondering if we could have some candy.
Yeah.
You Sinclair kids come around here at this hour of the night on, what is this, the 31st of October, and expect me to give you candy?
Oh my God, it was Halloween the whole time.
You maniac! God damn you all to hell!
As far as a Halloween special goes, this is fine. It's got some spooky atmosphere and scares, so it gets the job done. But it stands out to me mainly because of how outstanding the Dinosaurs series was. And in contrast, this episode is just kind of middle of the road, to be honest. Again, there's no deeper message that you would expect from this particular show.
Let's kill the monster we don't understand and therefore fear.
And also the title is Little Boy Boo, which kind of implies a ghost. I don't normally associate werewolves or werewolf equivalents with Boo. I would have gone with I was a teenage caveman.
You must strike yourself senseless with a club of the purest silver.
Unfortunately, the stores were all out, so I had to make do with a spoon.
It is nice to see the Sinclair boys actually hanging out and being brothers. I don't think they did that a lot, so this is actually kind of heartwarming. But you could totally tell they really didn't have an ending, since the story is only 18 minutes long. So they tack on that I'm the Baby music video to fill out the time. Ooh, spooky.
Gotta love me! Oh, I think I lost him.
Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. So Lego kinda has an open relationship, capitalistically speaking. Warner Brothers owns the concept of Lego movies, as you can tell by how the Lego Batman movie just kinda fell into a Dimensions video game cutscene by the third act. But they also love Star Wars and Marvel money, which is Disney's money. Hence this 45-minute special made for Disney+. Which is weird right off the bat, since the Star Wars universe really isn't scary or spooky. I mean, it's kinda in certain places, but I think we can all agree that the concept leans more towards sci-fi than just outright mysticism. It's kinda like saying my favorite Halloween movie is Conan the Destroyer, because of that big monster and that spooky Hall of Mirrors. You know, it just doesn't really mesh. Now this could have been some generic corpo gruel, and, you know, it kinda is. But it's got a little bit of flavor to it. It's self-aware enough to frame this scenario in a way that pokes fun at the executives who probably mandated it.
Lava fountain? We got one.
Poe lands on a planet that turns out to be one of the old bases of Darth Vader. So it turns out that a Hutt is trying to turn it into a Sith-themed hotel.
Galaxy's first all-inclusive Sith-inspired luxury theme resort. What do you think?
That sounds like a really bad idea.
The analogy that they were probably going for is like how tourists visit Dracula's castle, or like how people weirdly love stormtroopers, even though they are clearly a symbol for fascism. Likewise, this would be like the in-universe equivalent of creating Hitlerland.
Feel the power of the dark side of the dark side of the dark side of the dark
I'll show you a dark side.
Enough about the window dressing. The real plot is about this OC, who was a servant of Darth Vader.
Yep, been with me the whole time.
Tricking this Force-sensitive boy into leading him deeper into the catacombs, collecting Sith artifacts along the way. Each artifact carrying with it a story. Or at least a story Tony Hale made up on the spot, based on old Treehouse of Horrors he's seen.
I wish I was off this rock.
Hey, you should join the Imperial Academy.
Like the first one is just The Lost Boys. Except instead of vampires, it's the Knights of Ren seducing Ben to the dark side. And you know what? This is actually the creepiest of the trio, since it's this big homage to 80s horror. The Luke one is just a what-if story with a Wookiee's paw. It's actually kinda wholesome, with the father and son duo inadvertently bonding.
One for luck.
The middle one tries to be a monster mash, with Grievous versus Maul. But, like, the monsters in this one are basically Frankenstein versus half of Frankenstein. So... 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Although it does show the Emperor being the best as always.
Oh, too bad. Push it! Goodbye.
Anyway, you can really tell they were trying to force the Halloween into this one. Like, when the movie that tried to fool you into believing that it was a Halloween special still comes off more festival than your actual Halloween special, because, you know, Halloween may not actually exist in your universe.
We celebrate a day of peace, a day of harmony.
But hey, it's a Lego Star Wars special. It's non-canon. It's mostly made for goofs. And besides, no one's ever really gone... Oh, whoa, no, that guy's dead as hell.
I really learned my lesson. Gotta start small, like a bed and breakfast. Come on, boys! We're gonna be rich!
Ooh, breakfast!
No, please, just wait a day and we can do Dia de los Muertos, like in Coco.
Too late! We've already committed!
The Solar Opposites Halloween Special. I don't pay a lot of attention to solar opposites. The premise seems fun enough, and everyone always seems to be talking about the wall. But, you know, it just never really clicked with me the way other shows have. But I absolutely love the Solar Opposites Halloween Special, if not for the inclusion of the Crypt Keeper.
Anthony was a simple tailor, but he soon found that you reap what you sow.
Yeah, plausible deniability be damned. That's just the Crypt Keeper. Voiced by the master of ceremonies himself, John Kazir.
Some bloody once told me the world is gonna skull me. I ain't the sharpest ghoul in the dead.
Oh! Wait, was that Smash Mouth?
So, yeah, like the two aliens, they love Halloween. But Corvo is a wuss. So they promise to have only one Halloween decoration. So they rob a grave and make themselves a Crypt Keeper.
He reminds me of my Nana, whose grave was recently robbed.
Basically, it just sprouts taglines for Tales episodes that don't exist, and scares the crap out of Corvo.
Roses are red, violets are blue, just like dead bodies.
So you might be like, okay, cool story, but that's not so weird. Well, hold on. Turns out there's only one person who hates the Keeper more than Corvo, and that's the neighbor across the street, Randall, who doesn't like his Halloween decoration thunder being stolen by the alien family.
And now, with a Crypt Keeper and a real dead alien skeleton, I'll have enough buzz to keep this honeypot running year-round!
And just when it looks like the final blow will be struck...
Randall.
Did you just say my name?
Here's a tale about Randall, a little boy from northeast Michigan who lost his sense of wonder. Randall didn't realize that when your whole personality is being the Halloween guy, you only really get to live one night a year.
So the Crypt Keeper basically gives the guy a therapy session through the medium of spooky anthology. It's actually a really sweet moment.
He's just as dusty as I remember.
But can we just go back to that one word?
Randall.
I don't know why, but that one word just sends chills down my spine.
Randall.
It's almost like when you play a personality that is dialed to 11 for 30 years. Delivering a read with genuine sincerity can be just as creepy and strangely moving.
Randall.
Even if it's just one line. Just one word.
Randall.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that kind of felt weird about it. But I think it was worth pointing out and putting on this list. Also, the Crypt Keeper just disappears between the cut. Like he's there, then they bring back Little Blue from hell, and he's gone. And they don't seem to care. After a whole episode of trying to find him. You know, I would totally watch this show if Crypt Keeper was a regular character.
You're a good guy.
Gather around to hear the tale of Jonathan, who loved his harmonica.
Well, that one wasn't scary.
The harmonica was made of bones. Randall.
Is it just me, or is something otherworldly going on here?
That sounds like our department.
Okay, so for years I've been looking for this stage play of Sleepy Hollow I once saw on PBS in the late 2000s. I still can't seem to find it. So every Halloween I get frustrated and look through a huge list of all the adaptations of Sleepy Hollow. But this year I was immediately derailed when I found out that there was a Sleepy Hollow Bones crossover. So goodbye, High Art, and hello, Schlock.
Who are you, and what are you doing in my laboratory?
Is there a cosplay competition going on that I wasn't invited to?
Do I look as though I have just beamed from the planet Vulcan? No.
For those who don't know, this interpretation of Sleepy Hollow is about Ichabod Crane and the Horsemen being resurrected in modern-ish day. Because all the weird Stonecutter secret society mysticism that people have attributed to the Founding Fathers is actually true. Especially Washington, who totally wasn't an absolute idiot of a general, and who didn't use loopholes in the law to keep his slaves. Watch Renegade Cut. Aside from all that, it's weird that the show had a crossover with the only slightly more grounded Bones.
And yet we converse. Oh! Ooh, look, a pile of porn. Delicious. Give me a peek, Booth. Just a little peek at a boobie?
And to be fair, the weirdness only goes the one way. In the episode of Bones, nothing supernatural really happens, except for the fact that the characters from Sleepy Hollow show up, when a body is found in a New England church by some meddling kids. Yeah, put it right there on the breakaway point on the stage. Crane is just kinda poking around at stuff in front of Bones, being all weird. Then the Bones crew crosses over into Sleepy Hollow when the corpse that they spent so much time working on is resurrected with maggot magic. I also love that you can tell this is now Sleepy Hollow because of the Dutch angles and blue tint. Look, we're in New England. Now we're in Mexico. Now it's the future. No ambiguity here in this half of the crossover. There is a squadron of undead redcoats just running around on Halloween. Which makes it weird that Bones and Angel don't really see any of that. The most surreal thing that happens to them is Cranes and Bone getting caught in a trap room. You know, the ones with the Civil War era ceiling-mounted flamethrowers. I like that they scrambled to actually solve the weird puzzle that Riddler Thomas Jefferson left, but Angel just shoots the lock, and it's over. And then they just kinda leave. Like the whole show. Okay, bye. Maybe it's because I'm not too invested in either show, but let's just say that I was a fan of one of them. Is this crossover really gonna get me to watch the other? Like, the Sleepy Hollow show is too gonzo for the Bones audience, and the Bones episode was too dry for the Sleepy Hollow audience. Also, the production style is just day and night, with Bones looking bright and clean, and Sleepy Hollow looking dark with over-the-shoulder cams. There just isn't a lot of synergy between the two. Also, the kids at the start were having a Halloween party, but the climax takes place on Halloween night. And I'm guessing they needed some time to actually examine the body and do research, and then transfer the body back to Sleepy Hollow? Like, does this take place over a weekend, or like a whole entire week? Hey, do you think those kids waited until after the party to call the police?
Yeah, boy!
Do you have any scary corsages? I'm taking my bride to a Halloween party.
That's a great Halloween costume.
I'm not wearing a costume.
Little Shop, Untitled Halloween Story. You ever see someone get ready for Halloween and they got like a vintage paper hang-up from like the 80s? Maybe a neon dancing witch from Walmart, a plastic Nightmare Before Christmas jack-o'-lantern, and then like a bunch of realistic dismembered body parts from Spirit Halloween? Yeah, sure, it's all Halloween stuff, but none of it seems to mesh together in a coherent theme. That's The Little Shop of Horror, Untitled Halloween Story. For real, that's the name of it. It really does feel like they were throwing everything together at the last minute.
Aren't you Seymour? I didn't know you had any friends.
Please deposit $2.
How about a pot roast?
Okay, so a quick rundown. Okay, this is a Saturday morning cartoon show based off of the hilariously gruesome stage play turned movie. Because that's what you just did in the 80s and 90s. Except all the characters are kids, except for Mr. Moonchick. Audrey has an obsession with firefighters for some reason. Is that like a joke or something? And Audrey, too, is not from outer space, but the last of an extinct species from millions of years ago. And instead of human blood, he just kind of likes to eat meat.
Trick or treat!
Feed me!
Also, it takes place in the early 90s, with the soundtrack mainly being R&B with rap, and a doo-wop backbone. And yeah, there are multiple songs during each episode, and they are of various quality.
Pop the top, reach in and grab some pumpkin guts. Carve a scary face and put the candle in.
As if the premise of the series wasn't strange enough, then you have the animation and art style, which is, like, always weird. Backgrounds and space are just kinda loose concepts. The speed varies between animating on 2s, 3s, and even 4s. Like, the style is early 90s, but it feels like something from a late 70s Japanese studio. Oh, and then there's this shot here where Audrey all of a sudden has sharp teeth. When I was a kid, I was like, oh no, she's like a monster! You know, I hadn't figured out animation mistakes were a thing yet. Oh, that's right, we were talking about Halloween. Well, there are 3 things that are going on here. 1, Audrey all of a sudden wants to be a telephone operator, so that's just her hyperfixation for the episode.
If you wish to speak to the operator, please deposit 25 cents.
2nd, the plant monster is upset that people are carving pumpkins, so he plans on liberating them all, ignoring the fact that they don't really seem to care. And also he's stealing them after they've already been carved, so what's the point? Audrey, too, is an asshole, by the way.
Don't be putting down roots when it's time to proceed. Let's have some fun, because it's Halloween.
And the weirdest part of the episode is Seymour's anxieties towards the holiday.
I mean, there's something kind of depressing about watching everybody else have fun. It makes you feel kind of lonely.
And yeah, I think that's like what social anxiety is. Wait, didn't Bluey do an episode about this? Then when he gets locked in a cemetery at night, all these ghosts and monsters start screaming at him.
What are you afraid of? I don't know. No, leave me alone!
But then he kind of comes to terms with his fears. But I'm still not sure what those were. Like, was he afraid of being alone? Or was he afraid of being around people? Or wanted to be alone, but was also afraid of being alone. Like some kind of reverse stage fright.
You know, it's lonely here, but it's kind of peaceful.
Oh yeah, that sorts everything out. Man, the 90s were weird.
Come on, let's make like a dead leaf and blow.
Oh, this is my lucky night!
The Magic School Bus Halloween Special. When I was coming up with my close enough Halloween list, the I can't believe it's not Halloween of TV programming, one of the first things that popped in my head was the Magic School Bus. They had an episode on bats, and an episode on sound waves that took place in a creepy old mansion. The crux of both being, hey, the unknown is scary, but it might become less scary if you actually learn about it. They were both great episodes, and either one would have been a shoo-in for the list. Until I found out about A Magic School Bus Halloween. This special combined the 2 spookiest episodes of the Magic School Bus with live action segments of some random kids wandering around a museum after hours. Yeah, you know, the old traditional overnight class trips to museums on Halloween. You know, I used to think that the whole educational slumber trip thing was just something sitcoms made up, like rope climbing and gym, or a school nurse. And if you're thinking, live action Miss Frizzle? Well, no, yeah, maybe?
I love museums.
especially on Halloween. They're just oozing with delectable dilemmas for my victims.
Victims!
Basically, there's this weird old guy that makes a magical entrance along with the most awkward forced laugh in TV history.
Trick or treat!
Hair-raising sound, don't you think?
Then they basically shoehorn 2 episodes into a Halloween special.
This one. It all started one Halloween.
No, it didn't. Neither one of these episodes took place on Halloween. Why you gotta lie? Anyway, as the night progresses, this guy's face and hair gets more and more messed up. Almost like they're wearing a disguise that's getting more and more frizzled.
Excellent observation, Howie.
And their exit from the museum is followed by the most awkward green screen shot ever.
Impossible!
Like, what kind of perspective is this? Is Lizzie, like, gigantic?
Wow! We've been frizzled!
I don't know what the point of the costume was, when I think seeing a live-action Miss Frizzle would have been way cooler. I mean, this is not horrible. You get 2 good episodes from a good series, and lots of creepy atmosphere from an empty museum. Maybe there was a logical reason they didn't want the character on screen.
This is one fear I don't need.
Don't need? Don't need for what?
Why, for what I do!
And what's that? Scaring people for no reason?
Perhaps for you to find out.
Or maybe they just thought the twist and reveal was way cooler than it was. The greatest trick Miss Frizzle ever pulled was convincing the world she didn't exist.
Gotta run.
Soup and Me. This has got to be the least Halloween-y Halloween special I have ever come across. Sure, it's a Halloween special in that it takes place on Halloween.
Our whole class is getting ready for the Halloween party tonight, and here we are stuck with raking old man Setter's leaves.
But, like, there is absolutely no atmosphere to it. It's just these kids dicking around, and weird adults also dicking around. For a little context, Soup and Me was a book about 2 kids, Rob and Luther, who goes by the nickname Soup. I actually remembered seeing this cover as a kid, which is based off a bit where they lose their clothes at a swimming hole and have to steal dresses to cover up.
Well, that settles it.
Settles what?
Our Halloween costumes. We're wearing them.
Aw, jeez.
Why did they go to a swimming hole on Halloween? Wouldn't it be too cold for that? Well, they didn't, at least in the book, which is actually just a loose collection of stories Rob has with his childhood friend. This ABC Weekend special tries to condense highlights from the book, like the dresses, the bullfighting, the whipping apples over the barn, and use the time that they borrowed a pumpkin and wheelbarrow so that they could win the biggest pumpkin contest and turn that into the main drive of the story. It's actually a smart way to adapt the book, I'll admit. You got the setup, the boys being too busy with a punishment to get the pumpkin, the ticking clock of the party, the Ulyssian journey the kids have to go on, and finally, the big payoff of bowling over the mean girl at the party. Why does that kid have an upside-down cross on his nose? But it kind of falls short when you notice that these kids have severe undiagnosed ADD.
Rod, how far do you reckon you can whip an apple? One shot each. We'll see who can whip it farther. I'll get some sticks. Okay.
Like they say they need to get ready for the Halloween party, but they just decide to go swimming instead. They've already lost their clothes, but they don't go home or work on getting a pumpkin. They stop and whip apples over a barn just to prove that they can. That is the loudest bread cart I've ever heard. No atmosphere, no ambiance, not even any spooky music. The scariest thing about this special is the 1970s day for night shots at the end. And you know what else I found out? This is actually the only ABC Weekend special that takes place on Halloween. Oh sure, you've got Bunnicula and Miss Switch, which have retroactively became Halloween specials during reruns and cable showings, but this actually takes place on the holiday. And it's just a bunch of kids running around the backwoods, which actually sounds like a great premise for a Halloween special. But not like this.
Dead from Television Center in Transylvania, it's Boo!
Boo is a parody of 1970s variety shows and comedy revues, released in 1980 by the Canadian Broadcasting Network.
We decided to do a variety show.
Why?
Thank you. Because everyone told us variety shows are dead. Right away, we knew this was a show for us.
And while it is not without its charms, fun set designs, and decent musical numbers provided by musical guest Dionne Warwick, like seriously, I looked up this song and added it to my Halloween playlist. The actual structure of the special is all over the place. Like right after a really atmospheric opening, dragging Dracula's coffin to the stage, we go right into a musical number. Then two very brief jokes.
You will never limp again! I can't stand or walk! Yes, but you will never limp again!
Then right back to the song and opening monologue.
Tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna scare the pants right off of you!
Like, there's this one bit where Dracula is doing, basically the SNL thing of the Weekend Report. But this is like the only time that happens. You'd expect it to be a recurring thing, like, oh, he's going to keep interrupting the show to make all these weird news reports. But no, this is like the one time we see this set, and all for a really, really lame joke.
Polly wants a zebra!
Like, it's part Saturday Night Live, part Sonny and Cher.
That's an old joke.
I'm an old guy.
Lots of hee-haw.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't make coffin calls.
But also the material is so toothless, it's like something out of the Banana Splits. The real ones.
Here, hold still.
Like, the commercials between the program are actually way creepier.
An irresistible fragrance you wear all over every day. If a man you've never met before suddenly gives you flowers, that's impulse.
Some of the jokes are so fast, it's blink and you'll miss it.
Count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And some are so drawn out, it becomes painful. Like this bit in the middle where a bunch of aliens play poker in a bar.
Give me another hand.
With a Peter Falk impersonator working the bar. I wonder what two things were really popular during the 1970s that this is trying to cash in on.
Oh, didn't see you standing there. Enjoying the show? I guess you've seen it 4 times already, huh?
This part just moves at a glacial pace. And all for an extremely telegraphed joke. Or should I say telephoned joke. I got a bigger laugh when I realized that the actors for sure can't even see out of their masks or move their necks. And who is not Columbo supposed to be? Jekyll and Hyde? Or maybe he's Igor. But in a weird way, the self-proclaimed undeath of the 70s variety show loops in on itself and becomes actually funny again. And that's not to say there aren't some genuinely great performances. I legitimately cracked up at Rip Taylor's bits.
We all have a handicap. Palm Springs. Backgammon. Front gammon.
Especially when it's coupled with the aliens not selling it at all.
Hey, I don't dance. This is it for me, you know.
The guy who played Dr. Frankenstein is legitimately funny with his manic impressions.
Just a minute. People who make people are the almost in a bad thing.
I kind of wish it was his show instead of Dracula's.
I know. Put it there.
Oh, and that's Peter Cullen as the Wolfman. That's right, a very early on-screen role by Optimus Prime and Eeyore.
Theme song, what was it?
Up a lazy river. No.
And he's tearing up the scenery. Literally. What a bizarre little experience. I almost wonder what spurred it. Like, was this just a one-off gag? A pilot for a series? Or Canadian tax fraud?
We're gonna scare the face right off of you.
The Dancing Pumpkin. So what do we got here? The Dancing Pumpkin? Sounds cute. What is it, like some kind of sing-along tape? Oh, geez. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about here, so strap in. The Dancing Pumpkin is a 2000 CG animated special. I don't want to say it's a movie because it only clocks in around 40 minutes. And, well, it feels like an old German fairy tale.
We have entered the ogre's woods. Remember to be brave and true in your hearts.
Like, things happen, and they kinda have a logical progression, but there isn't anything like character development or themes. For example, some kids catch their pumpkin dancing on the front porch, and he conscribes them into helping him stop an evil ogre from teaching other monsters how to hurt people better. Because, you know, it's a pumpkin's job to fight monsters on Halloween.
If a monster is bitten twice by pumpkins on the same night, it will shrink down to the size of a pumpkin seed and spend the rest of its life hiding under mushrooms being chased by hungry birds.
Anyway, the kids agree, and also bring some strange stuff to help fight the ogre.
I brought my slingshot with some golf balls. I brought some fudge I made with my mom. I brought a jar of holy water. I got it from my church.
My man!
And it was at this point I was like, is this going to be a Christian DVD? Like when the ogre finds the Book of Hurt. I was waiting for them to break out the Bible. But no, it's just weird.
Oh, I love dancing.
And while in the forest, the crew just happens to come across some actually scary stuff, like a spectral horse, and what I assume is just a straight-up banshee. You know, the omen of death. Then the crew gets separated when a coven of witches attacks and kidnaps one of the kids, and straight up kills a giant pumpkin. And that's not the creepiest part.
I'll marry him.
Stranger danger, stranger danger. But he escapes when he befriends a flying snake who tells him to drug the witch with sleeping powder, and throws her magic spell book in a boiling cauldron. destroying her cloud castle and sending her to the bottom of the lake.
What happened to Gingly?
She sank straight to the bottom. She is now the witch of the lake.
Let's hurry up and leave before she wakes up.
You see why I said this feels like a fairy tale, right? Oh, and then there's these drunken Irish skeletons.
Helgi, your bone brain. It's all my scariness that carries us, and you know it's true.
Aye, that's not true, Finbogie. I'm more frightening than you, and your skull is thicker than mine.
I don't know if they're supposed to be human skeletons, but man, the scale between them and the kids is weird. Like, even if the skeletons were just shorter, these kids still have, like, gigantic heads.
My head's not big!
You know, with all this going on, you're probably wondering, why is he called the Dancing Pumpkin? Well, because he dances, of course.
You see, my young friends, I'm an uncommon pumpkin.
And how does that affect the story? It doesn't at all. I mean, it's the skeletons who distract the ogre, so him being a dancing pumpkin really isn't a big deal. But later he says it's his dream to win the annual pumpkin dancing contest.
I've been practicing all my life. You see, I want to win the dance contest at the pumpkin ball this year.
Pumpkin ball?
So, like, lots of pumpkins can dance. Yeah, by the way, these kids know that their friend might be devoured right now, but they just gotta watch this pumpkin do a striptease.
How many dances will there be?
Maybe 100.
This better not awaken anything in me.
So you think this would be like a moral crossroads for the dancing pumpkin? Like, oh, I really want to dance in this competition, but I gotta save my kid.
After all, you picked me from the pumpkin patch and brought me here. Now it's my duty to guard your house.
So he, like, sacrifices his chance in order to do what's right. But no, he just politely waits his turn, dances, wins the competition, and the adventure starts up again. In which, I remind you, he doesn't really seem to do anything.
Time to rest.
Oh yeah, you've earned it. More like a jackass-o-lantern. Now fast forward to 2017, and the Dancing Pumpkin and the Ogre's plot. Oh crap, they made a sequel? No. This is more like a high-res remake with a few changes. For example, they cut the kids from 4 to 2, and they cut a bunch of that weird stuff with the witch marriage. But they also made some other weird choices. And I'm not talking about the faces. Like, they made the Dancing Pumpkin a general.
He called you General.
That's my rank in the pumpkin world.
It almost feels like they were going for a weird Lord of the Rings or Star Wars vibe.
Hello there.
Oh, and by the way, there is no dancing contest in this one. So the whole dancing shtick makes even less sense. By the way, I actually prefer the 2000 version. Mainly because it keeps the ghost horse, the banshee, and this. But also because this actually feels kind of impressive for a micro studio at the time, even if it is janky as all hell. Nowadays, everyone's got Blender. Although I find it hilarious that even with the updated models, the skeletons are still so tiny.
Did you think that comically small skeleton was me? Yes?
Happy Halloween!